PlayStation just yeeted Sweet Baby Inc. into orbit, and fellas, it's time to dance on the ashes. Sony's axed a pile of projects tied to these narrative hacks after years of Sweet Baby turning AAA games into preachy PowerPoint slides. It seems like the big dogs have finally grown a spine, it seems. Are we done with heroes in video games whining about their feelings and acting like they were forced to attend unconscious bias training? Well, let's see if there's any truth to what's going on here. To put it simple, PlayStation's cleaning house. From that Park Place, Sweet Baby Inc. reportedly dropped by Sony as gaming giant cancels several projects with Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. This massive bombshell comes from friends of the channel Gothic Therapy. This husband and wife duo are like the eyes that Sweet Baby Inc. just can't seem to pluck no matter how hard they try. They've been exposing and getting scoops on everything Stinky Baby related for a while now. Pretty much, Sony's cut Sweet Baby Inc. loose, scrapping multiple titles in the pipeline. Hopefully this means that the next God of War won't have any rainbow axes or Kratos going to a therapy session to talk about his toxic masculinity. This news isn't surprising to someone like me. After all, Concord's $400 million belly flop was the thing of legends. Sony lost a lot of money and credibility when they released that stinker of a game, especially when you consider that Concord costed Sony more to make than something like either Last of Us games or even God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. Yet all the games I just said have sold somewhere in the 10 million plus range, which even for Sony, that's not enough it seems these days. After all, when you compare the pre-Sweet Baby Inc. version of God of War, which sold somewhere close to 20 million, to Ragnarok, which actually sold less than that, it's not really surprising because people don't want this blasphemy in their video games. And of course then you have Spider-Man 2, which was also Sweet Baby aligned and barely scraped half its 2018 game sales in comparison. Sony's wallets are crying, and Sweet Baby's the fall guy. But it shouldn't be that surprising considering where Sweet Baby's mission started, which is Quebec, Canada by the way. Which makes me sad every time I remember that I'm Canadian, and that means this plague originated near me to any capacity. And yes, I apologize on behalf of Canadians, dear viewers. We're not all morons who think all your games should suck donkey balls, I assure you. However, that Park Place does bring up a story I didn't know about when it came to Kim Belair. That's the co-founder of Sweet Bing Bong Baby. So she was interviewed at some point in 2019 and brought up Mass Effect 2 of all games, and according to Park Place, Kim Belair was upset that players were able to change their Commander Shepard into whatever they wanted when they played that game. As in, you know, your skin color, being male or female, the whole shebang. So her Commander Shepard, which she made, is a black female character obviously, and when she first meets Jacob Taylor in Mass Effect 2, who's a black guy in case you've never played the game, but Kim Belair then had this eureka moment of representation according to her. Here's what she said during that speech in 2019. The general idea was, holy moly, representation is cool. But in my Mass Effect experience, this is almost an accidental form of representation because it's something that's a possibility. It's not guaranteed for any player depending on the kind of character and the Commander Shepard you make. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if this wasn't an accident, but it was actually the intention of the game designers? Ah, so she had an accidental moment of two black characters meeting in a game and then thought that every single player out there, regardless of their skin color, gender, and anything else, would love to have the same sort of experience that she had. So this kind of explains South of Midnight, which came out recently by the way. It's made by Compulsion Games. The actual Steam numbers for Midnight are, well, here, take a look for yourselves. Yeah, they're not great as you can see. Not many people actually bought this game, which retails for $50 Canadian at release, although it is available on Game Pass. So I would wager the majority of people who I guess did end up playing this game probably just did there instead of buying it outright. And that game, as I reported way back, was originally meant to star a white, fair-skinned young woman. And the game was never meant to be in the Bayou Swamps or anything like that. Grum spoke to devs at Compulsion, this was almost a year ago, about this game. And he even got an actual character model comparison from devs there, as you can see here, where the original main character was very clearly a white woman with European features, and then on the right, that's the character that ended up being the final product, and as you can see with your very own eyes, they're completely different. But it's no surprise once Kim Belair joined Compulsion Games to help with the narrative design of the game, she pushed to completely change the game to fit her own agendas and ideals. Because the game was never meant to be what it ended up becoming, but she just forced it because she wanted everyone to have that same experience that she had when her black female Commander Shepard met Jacob in Mass Effect 2 because representation. It's always funny how people have an experience and then imagine that everyone wants exactly what they want, except that it's never really the case. And it ain't even rumors at this point, because Sony's pattern is clear. Even Square Enix, for example, they bailed on Sweet Baby Inc. last year after Forspoken died. Sure, Forspoken was consulted by Black Girl Gamers, which is also a real consulting firm, but Black Girl Gamers, Sweet Baby Inc., all of it is sort of the same kind of beast. And if you know the story surrounding Forspoken, Luminous Productions, which made that game, went from creating one of the highest selling Final Fantasies of all time with 15, and then released Forspoken that literally nobody bought and critics hated. It was a certified modern flop of epic proportions, and then Luminous ended up closing shop, but since it's Japan, the devs didn't really lose their jobs at least, they just kinda got folded back into Square Enix to join their various other teams at the company. And Forspoken, like South of Midnight, was based on a demo by Luminous called Agony's Philosophy, which you're seeing on screen right now. And it, just like Midnight, starred a character that was very obviously, as your eyes can see, not a black woman at all. And look, I'm not saying that games can't have black female leads or anything like that, but the point stands that both of these games were made from concepts that were clearly one thing, and once these consultation groups got involved with the project, they became something else entirely. So it's no wonder to me anyways that now PlayStation's joining the club of kicking these consultant firms to the curb. Because Sweet Baby's flops are legendary. Suicide Squad bled $200 million. Spider-Man 2 launched with more agenda than a summer camp. And while Sweet Baby Inc. didn't work on it, Concord channeled that same sort of activism energy. And then it got shut down faster than a PSN outage. You ask me, hiring Sweet Baby Inc. to work on your games now is just like inviting in the Grim Reaper to take you away at this point. Even Insomniac, which did Spider-Man 2, which underperformed, is also doing the Wolverine game. And I think this change has been a long time coming since back in October 2024, also from Park Place, Marvel's Wolverine's creative director no longer on project due to creative decisions around the game. So Brian Horton, who was the original director of this Wolverine game, he'd been working on it since 2021, and then as we now know, leaves 3 years later and then just ended up leaving Insomniac entirely. So now there's a new creative and game director, which are people who have worked on Insomniac's other hits like Ratchet and Clank and more. So this just tells me that this change in direction and citing the creative differences behind the scenes are being changed are lining up rather perfectly with Sony. Again, according to Gothic Therapy, completely removing Sweet Baby Inc. from their company like they were leeches that got way too comfortable. Cause look, whether that South of Midnight game is good or not, I'm not playing it, don't ask me to do that, alright? I already suffered through Ass Creed Shadows for the channel. That game is being clearly not supported by actual buyers of the game to a degree that would actually justify its years of development. And it's simple, guys, people don't want to support things that the stinky baby was a part of. And I mean, Spider-Man 2 even was allegedly supposed to have DLCs and story expansions, only none of that happened because like I said, the game ended up selling 50% worse than the previous one did. You know it's bad because the guy who voices Peter Parker in those Insomniac games, his name is Yuri Lowenthal by the way, had to tell the internet that Peter won't be sidelined in the eventual third game despite the second game ending as if Peter was handing the mantle to Miles. Which fans, like your boy here, absolutely hated and was a big reason why Spider-Man 2 was so loathed by actual Spider-Man fans. Here's what Yuri said, he will be part of the next game and he won't be relegated to the couch, I promise. While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a completely normal life, I don't think that's what's going to happen now. Okay, going to happen now. Oh, so it was in the cards before then. Well, I hope not. Because I don't know about you, but I want to play Spider-Man in my Spider-Man games. And Miles, at least if you ask me, is not Spider-Man, and I don't care how much people try to push him that he is, he isn't. Because if he was Spider-Man, then his own spin-off game wouldn't have had his full legal name displayed on the cover so fans knew who the game actually starred. But let's keep cackling at this train wreck. Sweet Baby Inc. thought they could walk into these studios with the exaggerated swagger of a black teen and just start reinventing how gaming has been done for years. We've got the vision, they thought, and ended up just leaving a trail of smoldering wrecks instead. The fact that Spider-Man 2 sidelined Peter Parker for Miles was clearly a Sweet Baby Inc. decision. Think about it. You got a white hero and a black hero. Who do you think Sweet Baby wants to lead the series? It also makes no sense narratively either, because Miles has no villains of his own now in that franchise going forward. Mr. Negative's beef with him is done. The Prowler is retired. The villains are clearly going to be the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus going forward, which are obviously two villains that are tied directly to Peter and not Miles. So what's Miles' angle here? What's his new main villain? I don't know, maybe he can fight a white guy who's like a landlord that's making people pay more for rent or something, or he can chase more robot dogs that are designed to kill people and then give them as pets to old women that will definitely not result in that robot dog eating that poor old woman defenseless one day. That's a real mission, by the way, in Spider-Man 2, I'm not lying. You legit give a robot dog to an old lady. They just have no angle here where Peter isn't the main character, and if it was up to Sweet Baby, Miles would just become Marvel Jesus and Peter would be sucking his toes like he's God. So it's no wonder that Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't care how these games perform or how they're received. They just pocketed the cash from these studios and then moonwalked themselves out of there. Maybe Sony's finally realizing that gamers don't want gender studies homework with their web slinging. They want chaos. They want stakes and great characters, not Spider-Man crying over his white male guilt. I could just imagine Sweet Baby Inc.'s pitch to Sony for the next God of War game. Kratos needs a feelings journal. Maybe he needs a vegan phase. You know, to show people that he's changed, that he's turned a leaf. And I'm sure Sony America, which is situated in California, would hear that and start clapping like seals thinking, oh, it's so progressive. Look, Sweet Baby Inc.'s so detached, they would turn the Horizon series, if they could, into a co-op knitting simulator. They would instead have you crafting scarves instead of arrows. You ask me, Sweet Baby Inc.'s the DLC that nobody is asking for, and Sony's clearly not laughing. They're just done with this circus. And the cherry on top of all of this is that Sweet Baby Inc.'s Kim Belair once bragged about terrifying PR teams into deals with them.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Well, Kim, you scared Sony all right, straight into firing you all from ever working there again, so good job on that one. And PlayStation's not here for your fanfic rewrites. Kratos doesn't need a hug, he needs skulls to crack and spines to twist. And look, even if these projects that Sweet Baby Inc. was allegedly a part of at Sony cost them some millions to turn around, the point is that the alternative would have been hundreds of millions of dollars in losses and damages to their brands instead. So it's worth this change to happen if it means that we can get back on track and back into business. So why is this a game changer? Sony's not just dodging a bullet, fellas, here. They're dodging a literal nuke. Because Sweet Baby's a vampire, they're just draining games with their representation fetish. Every game that they've touched has been objectively worse because of their involvement, and fellas, it brings me so much joy to hear that Sony of all places could be sending the stinky baby in a rocket towards the sun to atomize it into nothingness. It really does. And I mean, can you blame Sony when your flagship titles aren't making nearly the same amount of money as they used to? Then you look over and you see stuff like Black Myth Wukong just saying, you know what, screw your consultants, and then, oh, they just end up selling 20 million plus copies. That's Elden Ring level, by the way. And then Black Myth Wukong becomes an overnight legend, and that unifies and pushes China's whole game industry into overdrive. And Sony's looking at those sorts of massive success stories that rejected consultants and realizing that gamers want escapism, not lectures on privilege. Because let's be real, you could only have so many Concord level flops before you end up becoming the next Ubisoft pretty much. And here's the swift kicker to the side of the head. Sweet Baby's still whining like they're the good guys. Kim Belair's probably still trying to spin a sob story to some studio like Sony stabbed us in the back. Nah, Kim, you stabbed gaming with your sanctimonious nonsense. Look, studios are going broke. Fans are bored of this, and Sony's done playing martyr. I truly hope this means that PlayStation is now back in the fight. And it isn't just a gesture, but it's instead a middle finger to every suit who forgot that games are for players and not their egos. Sony's betting on delivering the goods again, hopefully, and maybe Kratos might actually kill something next time without crying about it. So what's Sony got up its sleeve now? According to the internet, they're pivoting hard. Single player bangers, no more live service flops. God of War without the touchy-feely crap, yeah, give me more of that please. And it's no surprise this stuff is happening, as this happened just a bit back. This is from Eurogamer. Sony cancels 2 more live service games, including one based on God of War. A God of War live service game. What were they cooking over there, I wonder? I can already see the reveal trailer. It's a group of randomly very diverse and ugly people with a black lesbian leading the others into battle to fight Greek and Norse monsters. And then out of nowhere, an Asian woman with a unibrow and a septum piercing swings in from the left with her own blades of chaos somehow. Then the camera pans up and we see the villain, it's a white guy of course, and then a shot of the vendors of the game shows. And all the vendors are incredibly diverse, and then it shows Kratos for like 5 seconds to remind you this is somehow God of War related. And then the subtitle of the game probably gets said by Kratos like God of War Bloodbath or something like that. Yeah, no thanks, I'm good. I'm glad it's cancelled. There's not enough players, if you ask me, to keep all of these live service offerings going. And I'd rather Sony just focus on delivering quality, agenda-free single-player offerings than tying one of their talented studios to the live service slop cycle of development that is plaguing modern games. Just give us blood in action, Sony, not bonding and white guilt seminars in our games for God's sakes. Because chasing these woke trends is a loser's game. Sweet Baby's exit from Sony hopefully means that Kratos is going to be smashing gods again. And I mean that both in terms of fights and mini-games too, if you know what I mean. And I look at upcoming remasters like Days Gone as a good example of where Sony might be heading. They know that Days Gone sold absurdly well for how much it cost them, and these remasters only exist for really 2 reasons. One is that remasters are used to generate revenue to then use that revenue to make the sequel game. The other big reason for a remaster is also simple. It's to gauge whether there's interest in more content being made in that franchise in the future as well. So this is why I tell people, if you want a Days Gone 2 and you want to return to that based gaming era that Sony used to be in, you should probably support Days Gone Remaster. Because like I always say, you gotta vote with your wallet for the things you want to keep seeing and keep it closed to things you want to see less of. Because remember that Sweet Baby's still lurking, because Master of the TDS, who's half of Gothic Therapy, also revealed in his expose with his wife that Sweet Baby Inc. still has like 30 games in the works at least. And I think we can all probably guess that whatever these 30 games end up becoming, more than half of them are going to be absolute flops when they release too, because why would you want to support this kind of drivel? If we allowed this to fester, literally every game on the Western Front at the very least would be infected from the top down by things like this. Because if a Days Gone sequel happened with Sweet Baby Inc. attached somehow, Deacon St. John would get killed in the opening by a Chinese lady with a massive vibrator. And then some random Indian woman named Michael would become the main character all of a sudden. And if Sweet Baby was still a part of like Insomniac, Spider-Man 3 would unironically somehow have a playable ghost spider. That's the spider they, them who webs their wheelchair to their back when they swing around fighting crime. And that's real, by the way. That's an actual character that exists, but we'll know if we're on the right track if Sony drops a trailer with zero preaching for their core franchises. If whenever the next God of War gets revealed and it just shows Kratos tearing through dudes like he's at a Black Friday sale, maybe we're back in business. And if you ask me, SBI has had the reverse Midas touch. Instead of turning everything to gold, they just turn everything into poopy gray slop whenever they're involved. Sony's got to nail this going forward. Put fun first and throw away the preaching altogether, but if you ask me, this sounds like it could be a turning point. This isn't just Sony's win, it's a win for gamers. They can't reasonably afford these $100 million slop simulators anymore, because they're a company that needs to make money. And it's no wonder why the majority of their ports to PC recently aren't doing well, because people don't want to support stuff that the baby is attached to. And if you ask me, the turning point for all of this, besides Gamergate, was Black Myth Wukong, because they proved it. 20 million plus sales, dude, zero preaching. Sony's move might force a reckoning, make games, not manifestos going forward. Because players are done with the guilt trips, and these companies just can't keep supporting this. And the ripple effect from this move could be absolutely crazy, because publishers industry-wide might panic and they will say no more consultants, like they're the Scarlet Witch or something. And if Sony's showing spine with moves like this, maybe others might grow one too. And to those 30 or so projects that Sweet Baby is a part of still, my opinion is if you're working on one of those games and you're watching this, probably a good idea to gut whatever slot they put in your games. Because even if you remove Sweet Baby from your credits or try your best to hide that you worked with them, the proof is going to be in your story, your characters, the gameplay, all of it. Because players can tell when they're being talked down to, and no amount of makeup is going to convince people that a pig is not a pig, if you ask me. And then if players find out that you lied to them about concealing that the baby worked on your game, oh boy, you're cooked. And whatever backlash you were gonna face is gonna be amplified by 1,000 in response. Because the last thing that customers enjoy is being lied to, but when it comes to Sweet Baby Inc., I just don't think supporting anything they make is a morally good idea. And if these rumors are to be believed, it's in Sony's and the wider industry's best interest to completely gut this nonsense going forward. Make your games fun, make them work at release so they don't crash all the time, make your stories interesting, and stop pandering and adding stuff because you need to hit quotas. The wool is off everyone's eyes now, you can't hide this stuff anymore, and if any game company or studio is trying to ruin some franchise with political nonsense in the future, you can bet that I will be there to call it out, because no matter how much flack or negative comments I get from places telling me to end myself for standing up for gamers, which is daily at this point, I still won't stop. I care too much about video games, and this medium deserves all the respect that it deserves. So always ask questions and listen to that pattern recognition in your brain. If you notice something, look into it, call it out, and go deep. The world will be a better place as long as evil is uprooted in any chance that we can get. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments, subscribe, thank you for watching. And here's hoping that PlayStation finally has truly severed ties with the stinky, putrid, god-awful baby once and for all.